What's going on, people? Welcome back to another opposition preview. This week, I got Dave from Talking Wolves to look ahead to the game on the weekend. Both teams are on form, so it should be a good chat. As always, if you do enjoy it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. And throughout the video, leave down your comments, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Dave, last time we were on this channel talking about our games, you had Nuno, we had Roy. You were talking about how Nuno doesn't like to change things about and how he had his favourites. I said the same thing, and he was just pretty much stale at both of our clubs. But we both brought in new managers this summer. And Bruno Lage for you guys, he's more attacking. Vieira for us, he's more attacking. But what's the general feeling like so far this season around the Wolves fan base after getting Bruno?
It's improved a lot, man. Like I said, he came in. He wasn't my first choice manager when they announced that Nuno was going to be leaving the club. But things are looking positive. I mean, you look at the table. We're 7th as we speak. We're in a good position. We're beating teams that we should be beating to a degree. We're picking up points where we should be picking up points. And overall, the football is a lot more attractive under Bruno Lage so far. So the atmosphere amongst fans is a lot better than what it was sort of this time last season when I was speaking to you about Nuno. There were fans that it was very split between Wolves fans. Some fans wanted him out. Some fans, wanted to give Nuno a bit more time. But Bruno Lage, with the tools that he's got, the players that he's pretty much still got Nuno's squad. I think he's doing a pretty decent job, to be honest.
Was you surprised when Nuno left? There weren't that well. I've seen Wolves fans, of course, some of them were upset, but some of them didn't really mind it because they got a bit stale towards the end. Were you surprised by that? And you mentioned how we're talking about this. Bruno's left. Not Bruno. Nuno's left another job as well before we actually played the game since we last spoke. But what was the general feeling like in the summer when Nuno departed and you got this new manager in? Was there a sense of worry maybe that it's a bit risky considering that Lage has barely any Premier League, no Premier League experience going into this job?
Yeah, it's a strange one because I was very surprised when they announced that Nuno was going to be going. And they said it was mutual termination, so we don't really know if he walked, but a lot of reports basically saying that the club forced him out. It was a sacking, so I was surprised at that. And like I said, I was worried at first because you have got a manager coming in with no Premier League experience. He was an assistant manager at Swansea for a while under Carlos Carvalho, so he sort of understood the English game. He knows of certain players that are playing it in England and managers. And he's very clued up. What I was worried about was him coming in with no experience. But you look at his only experience, which was at Benfica in Portugal, and he went into that job after managing their B team and did so well. He won the league with them, got the best out of players like João Felix, who we know is a really strong talent now. So that sort of side excited me, but there was always a side of worry. Now, with Wolves fans, and I'm sure it's probably similar with Palace fans, you've got fans that are really fickle, and you've got fans that are, really die hard and will back the club whatever they do. The fickle fans, or the negative fans, were saying, right, we're going to get relegated before a ball was even kicked this season, and other fans were really positive about it. I think it's swung. Of course, there's still people that are cautious now because we're still pretty early into the season. I think it's more swung to the positive side. People are happy with him. He's a lot more, I would say, he seems a lot more hands-on than what Nuno was. He speaks to the press a lot more. He speaks a lot more positively. The press seem to like him a hell of a lot more than what Nuno did. They did with Nuno. So things are good. He's built a positive atmosphere. Players are raving about him. Nuno was at our club for 3 or 4 years. He gave players a chance that a lot of other managers would have binned off, i.e. the likes of Connor Cody. Nuno made him into the player he is today. And even Connor Cody was saying that the club needed a change. So I think that speaks volumes, really. So Bruno's come in, done a good job so far. There still are areas of his game that I think fans have picked up on that he may need to improve as a head coach, but I think that will come with more experience.
Yeah, you need to give him time. Well,
Exactly.
that's the same with Vieira as well. Like, we both got new managers in, and I didn't expect Vieira to be this good so early on because we got new players in, we got new style of play. And how I see it with Vieira is if Vieira grows at Palace and he realizes his mistakes and he tries to fix them, then I'm happy with that because I don't expect the final product to be here yet because Vieira has barely any experience in the Premier League. He's a Premier League legend, but in terms of managing in the Premier League, that's different compared to how it was in his days as well when he was playing. So I think with both managers, you need to realize that you have to give them a bit of time. But talking about time, what are your expectations this season? Is it going and trying to get European football once again, or this season is like a transition season where you just have to get used to the new style of play and get used to the new manager and just give it a bit of time?
I think it is. I think you used the perfect phrase there, like a transition season. Wolves said last year under Nuno was our transition season. We saw a couple of key players go, like Diogo Jota and so on, and then we signed a lot of good. Well, I say a lot of young upcoming talent, such as Fabio Silva and so on. So they classed last season as a transition season. We ended up finishing 14th, I think, in the league. Not a great finish, but at the same time, it wasn't great football. I would take under Bruno a mid-table finish as long as we're playing attacking football, remaining competitive, playing good football and enjoyable to watch. I would take that in his first season in charge, especially when you consider, in my opinion, he hasn't been overly backed in the summer window, or not backed enough. But with how we're playing, who knows? If we can push for top 7, then that would be unbelievable. But I think if we can creep into the top half of the table, I think as first seasons go, I think that would be acceptable and half decent for Wolves.
What about Palace? As a neutral, as a Wolves fan, how do you see things over at Palace? We've got a new manager in, new players in, as I've mentioned. Have you been impressed, or you think you still have to see a bit more before you can say much?
If I'm honest, I haven't had the chance to watch as much sort of outside the walls as much as I wanted to, but Palace was one of the games that I saw over the weekend, mainly because I thought, you know what, there were a couple of games, not just Palace, there was Brighton beating Liverpool and then you boys beating City as well, really big shocks, and I caught the highlights of that and just how well worked I think a couple of the goals were. Odsonne Edouard coming in as well, I was really cautious about that because I've known of Edouard since when he was at PSG before he went to Celtic. He started really well at Celtic and then he just seemed to dry up a little bit. And I was just cautious. I thought I would have taken him at Wolves like a couple of years ago, and I thought he's coming to the Premier League now. Is he going to be the player that fans have been expecting over the last couple of years? And he's grabbed a couple of goals as well, which is great for you guys. I think with Zaha, Zaha would probably get into any squad in the Premier League. Any team outside the top 4 easily. So you got talent there. Gallagher seems to be doing really well as well. I think you guys could and should possibly have the same or similar ambitions as Wolves, to try and break into the top half again. I know under Roy, it always seemed to be just if we can get mid-table. But I think the expectation with Palace fans, and it's probably similar with us last season, you went into the season thinking, we're probably good enough to stay up, but at the same time, we're not going to be pushing much for Europe. And I think that's how it finished for us last season. But I think Palace this year have got all the tools, as long as Vieira can keep the momentum going, got all the tools to maybe mount a top half finish again.
Yeah, it's all about just being consistent, giving it time. But I believe that we both got good enough players in our squads. It's just about, for Palace, I'm not too sure about Wolves, but our main problem has been converting the performances into wins, which we've struggled with. But now we've had one of the hardest fixture lists so far this season. We've faced Chelsea, we've faced Liverpool already, West Ham, faced Leicester. We faced Tottenham, which is debatable under Nuno whether that was a hard fixture.
Beat us twice. They've already beat us twice this season. So.
Is it? I forgot about that.
Beat us at home and then beat us in the Carabao Cup as well.
Jeez. Well, for certain teams, I guess it's harder. Well, for us, it was pretty much easy. We've had some hard games. We've had City as well, away from home. But now we've got more winnable games. So I wonder how that's going to unfold because you expect to pick up more points. I guess you guys will be looking at this game as not as a straight win, but as a winnable game compared to likes of Liverpool and City if you were to face them. And so do we. So we'll see how we play in games like this. But talking about some of the players, you mentioned some Palace players, but I watched your game, especially the first half against Everton. And Jimenez, he is back. He had a nasty injury, but his movement, his hold-up play, his goal, it seemed like he's on fine form. How does Palace stop him in this game? Does he have any weaknesses?
It's good. I think that game against Everton especially was one where, like you said, he's back. Had a pretty slow start to the season, as you'd expect, with that nasty injury last year. But he got a great goal against Southampton. He just bullied their defenders throughout that game. Newcastle, he got 2 assists. And he's just come back into the game against Leeds. I know we dropped points against them, but he frustrated the hell out of the Leeds players and the Leeds fans. The amount of tweets I saw from Leeds fans about Jimenez, just winding them up and so on. But against Everton as well, not just the goal. I think the goal was fantastic, by the way, lovely dink. But the hold-up play, everything like you've mentioned, really, really good. And I think he's pivotal for us. We missed him. You saw how we played last season, how negative we were, and that was because the club just didn't have a plan B if we were without Jimenez. The only game we haven't seen him starting was against Villa, and although we came back and won that game for 80 minutes, 80 minutes before we scored a goal, we were absolutely dreadful without him. So he's pivotal to Wolves, massive player, and it's great to see him back and obviously on the score sheet as well.
But it's not only him. There's two other players that I want to pick out. Wang, how do you even describe him? I'm not too sure. It feels like similar to how when I watch Conor Gallagher, he's just, all over the place and causes teams problems. Trincao as well. So out of, apart from Jimenez, who would you pick out as the danger man that Palace should watch out for? Is it them two players that I mentioned, or is there anyone else?
Probably those. I think that the crazy thing for Bruno Lage is at the moment and it's a good thing, but he's got a serious selection headache in terms of the wide areas because he's got Hwang, he's got Trincao, and then that's without even talking about Daniel Podence and without talking about Adama Traore as well. And then we've got Pedro Neto coming back in December. You know what I mean? Like, he's got three players there as it stands that won't even get in the team. So we've got Trincao is a strange one because I think technically you can see there is just a really good player in there. I think the first half against Everton, like you mentioned, he had a really strong performance and just looked like he could shrug players off. He's not that well built, but he can just find his way past players so easily. Hwang as well, he's just a strange one. I think he's one of those players that comes in and out of games because for half an hour you can watch him and he does absolutely nothing. But as soon as he picks up that ball, he can drive it up the pitch and just create something out of nothing. He scored twice against Newcastle. I think he's got four league goals for us this season so far. He had one chalked off against Everton, was just offside. That would have been 5, which is a really decent return for a wide player. Yeah, for a wide player. Him and Jimenez, it's almost, and I compared him to Jota a lot because after the game against Newcastle, him and Jimenez just seemed to have this sort of same connection that we saw with Jimenez and Diogo Jota when they were both playing in the Premier League together. So fingers crossed, I think we've got him on loan with an option to buy. They're talking about triggering that option to buy in January. So fingers crossed, he can continue to be the player. But I'd assume it'll be that front three again. And that's without considering the likes of, like I said, Podence, can't even get in the team. Adama Traore, who the club wanted about 60 to 80 million for a couple of years ago, can't even get in the team now as well. So it's a good headache for Bruno Lage to have, I suppose.
You know what's funny? It's like every time we talk, our clubs are in a similar position because we have something like that going on with Eze, who's going to come back from injury. We don't know where he's going to fit in. We've got Olise, who's been coming off the bench, but he's good enough to start. And Patrick Vieira should start him soon. So we've got, the likes of Will Hughes, wherever he would play. So it's like whatever happens, it's like our clubs are always identical with what's going on at the same time. But talking about some Palace players, you mentioned them, but who worries you the most? Is it Zaha? Is it someone else that you want to pick out?
It's got to be Zaha. I think he always causes a bit of a nightmare, to be fair. I think if you can... you'll probably say I'm wrong, but I think with Palace in particular, I think if you can stop Zaha, you can stop a lot of the attacks from Palace, and that's no disrespect to your other players because I think, like I've mentioned Edouard on his day, even Benteke has started to find a little bit of form. Gallagher, I think you've got brilliant players throughout the team, but I think Zaha is that main one. If you can stop him or frustrate him, because he has got that short temper. I think you could probably
You want to go there with the short temper? Well, you will have a short temper. You will have a short temper as well. When people kick you for like 90 minutes.
I know, but he's one that I think you can wind up fairly easily. And if you do and get in his head, I think you sort of almost, sort of make Palace struggle a little bit more. But like I say, it's not just him, but he's the main one for me. If you can stop Zaha, you can stop a big part of Palace, in my opinion.
And then finally, lineup and score predictions. How do you see you guys setting up, and also how do you see the game going?
I think in terms of Wolves, I would probably say we'll be unchanged from that game against Everton. So that was Jose Sarr in goal, back three of Max Kilman, Connor Cody, Sace, left wing back Ait Nori, right wing back Semedo, Neves and Matinho in the middle. And then I think it will be the same front three, Huang, Jimenez and Trincao. I always like to back Wolves. I think it's going to be a close game. I think, like you said earlier, we've sort of had the opposite run of fixtures to you guys. We've had some tough games. I'm not saying we haven't. We played Leicester, Spurs and United in the first 3 games. But the rest of our games from after that up until the end of November, I would say are teams that I'd expect to either be in and around us or below us. But I think both teams will come into this game thinking it's a tough game, but we could win or we should win. I think Palace will probably feel the same about us because I'd say we're on a similar sort of level. But I always like to back Wolves anyway. I'm going to go with a 1-0 Wolves win.
1-0.
Actually, no, let's go 2-1 because Wolves never like to keep clean sheets. Let's go 2-1.
All right, you know what? I was going to go for a draw, but if you're playing that game, I might as well back Palace
I've always got to back Wolves.
Yeah. I was thinking about 1-1. I think it'll be very tight.
It'll be a close game, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be a close game. Even though we beat City, I saw you guys against Everton. Everton weren't that great in the first half. Second half they did pick it up, but you got some talent in there, and you got you're not playing with your traditional. You're not playing with the traditional back four as well. You got back threes, which I wonder how we're going to approach this game. We faced a back three, twice I think this season against Chelsea and against Brentford as well. They used it against us, so we know about it, but it'll be something different once again. So 1-0, I said, but you know what? We're at home, so let's go for 2-1. No, actually 2-0 Palace. Let's keep a clean sheet.
Clean sheet.
Yeah, clean sheet. But where can they find you, Dave? Thanks for coming on. But where can they find you?
So it's at Talking Wolves. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and obviously on YouTube as well. We do match reviews, obviously the previews, reviews, reaction, and then we get fans react as well, where Wolves fans come on after the game and give us their thoughts as well. So yeah, Talking Wolves everywhere. Check us out.
So yeah, when Palace beat Wolves 2-0 on the weekend, make sure to check out. Let's see what
put your eagle emojis in the comments section.
Exactly, put your eagle emojis in the comments. But thank you to everyone who's been watching this. As always, leave down your comments below. Let us know your score prediction, your thoughts ahead of the game. And until next time, up the Palace.